She was dying, tied to a wooden cross under the Arizona sun, her skin blistered and cracked like the desert floor beneath her bare feet. Emma Hartley had been there for 2 days. No water, no shade, just the burning sky and the vultures circling overhead. Waiting for her to stop breathing, Caleb Morrison spotted her from half a mile away as he rode back to his ranch. At first, he thought it was a scarecrow, but scarecrows don't scream. He kicked his horse into a gallop, dust exploding behind him as he raced across the dry plains of Cochise County. When he reached her, Emma's eyes were half closed, her lips so cracked they bled when she tried to speak. "Please," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible, like wind through dead grass. Caleb pulled out his knife and cut the ropes binding her wrists. She collapsed into his arms, her body light as a child's, hollowed out by thirst and sun. "Who did this to you?" he demanded. Emma's fingers clutched his shirt, desperate, trembling. "Benjamin Wade," she gasped. He wants to marry me. I said no. So he left me here to change my mind." Caleb's jaw tightened. Benjamin Wade, the most powerful man in Wilcox, a cattle baron who owned half the town and bought the other half with bullets. "I'll get you to safety," Caleb said, lifting her onto his horse. But Emma grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. Her eyes, bloodshot and wild, burned with something more than desperation. "Save me," she whispered, her voice stronger now, urgent. "Save me, and I'll give you anything. 3 times a day, every day. I promise. You save me from Wade, and I'm yours, morning, noon, and night." There was no shame in her eyes when she said it, only raw, blazing defiance. Caleb froze. He understood what she meant. This wasn't just gratitude. This was a transaction. A deal forged in desperation, offered by a woman who had nothing left to bargain with except her body. "You don't know what you're saying," Caleb muttered, looking away. "I know exactly what I'm saying," Emma insisted, her fingers digging into his arm. "I don't have money. I don't have land. All I have is me. And I'm choosing where I belong." Caleb Morrison was 48 years old. He'd been a widower for 10 years, living alone on his ranch, breaking horses and avoiding people. He was no saint, but he also wasn't the kind of man who took advantage of a dying woman. Still, the way she looked at him, not with shame, but with defiance, like this deal was her choice, her weapon, her way of taking control when everything else had been ripped away. Caleb swallowed hard and nodded once. "Let's get you home first," he said quietly. "Then we'll talk." As his ranch came into view, Caleb felt Emma's body burning like a furnace against his chest. She was slipping away fast. He figured he had maybe 12 hours before her body just gave up for good. Maybe less. But as he rode toward his ranch with Emma's fevered body pressed against his chest, one question burned in his mind. Would saving her life cost him his soul? For 3 days, Caleb nursed Emma back from the edge of death. He gave her water. One careful sip at a time, broth made from beef bones, fed to her with a spoon like she was a child. Emma couldn't stand, couldn't even sit up without help. 2 days without water in 110-degree heat had cooked her from the inside out and left her too weak to even sit up. Caleb had seen men die from less in his cavalry days. He made a salt solution from memory, the kind army doctors used for soldiers dying of dysentery, and got it into her drop by drop. He wasn't a doctor, but 10 years in the cavalry had taught him enough tricks to keep a half-dead soul hanging on. He wrapped her sunburned skin in cool cloth, soaked in well water, and never once asked her about the promise she'd made. He figured she'd been delirious. Heat stroke makes people say crazy things. But on the 4th night, Emma proved him wrong. Caleb was sitting on his porch, smoking his pipe and watching the stars, when he heard the floorboards creak behind him. He turned. Emma stood in the doorway wearing one of his old shirts, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked stronger now, her eyes clear, her color coming back. "You saved my life," she said softly. "You're getting better. That's enough," Caleb replied, looking back at the desert. Emma walked over and sat down beside him, close enough that he could smell the lavender soap she'd used. I meant what I said out there, she whispered. 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night. That was my promise. Caleb's pipe nearly fell from his hand. You don't owe me anything, he said, his voice rough. I didn't save you for that. I know, Emma said. She placed her hand on his knee, and Caleb felt his whole body go rigid. But that's exactly why I want to keep my promise. You didn't ask for anything. You just saved me. And now I need to feel safe. I need to feel like I have control over something. Anything. Caleb looked at her then, really looked at her. This wasn't just about gratitude. This was about a woman who'd been tied to a cross by a man who thought he owned her, reclaiming her body, her choices, her power. Wade had given her father an ultimatum. $2,000 owed from a bad cattle investment. Pay up, or marry off Emma to clear the debt. Her father, weak and terrified, had agreed. Emma had refused, so Wade decided to break her the old-fashioned way. And what happens when Wade comes looking for you? Caleb asked. Emma's jaw tightened. Then you'll protect me, 'cause by then, I'll be yours, not his. That night, Emma kept her word. She came to him at dawn the next morning, slipping into his room before the sun was fully up. It took until day 7 before Emma was strong enough to walk on her own. Day 8 before the color fully returned to her face. And on the morning of day 9, she came to Caleb's room at dawn. At noon, she found him in the barn, closing the door behind her with a quiet click. And that evening, after supper, she sat beside him by the fire and took his hand, leading him back to his bed without a word. Caleb Morrison had lived alone for 10 years. He'd forgotten what it felt like to be needed, to be wanted, to have someone choose him. But as the days passed and Emma kept her promise with a fierce, almost desperate consistency, Caleb started to realize something terrifying. He was falling in love with her. And when Benjamin Wade finally came for her, guns blazing and fury in his eyes, would Caleb be strong enough to fight for a woman he was never supposed to keep? It was day 15 when Benjamin Wade came for her. Caleb was out by the corral, breaking in a new mare, when he heard the thunder of hooves. 7 riders, all armed. Wade rode at the front on a black stallion, his face twisted with rage. Caleb's hand moved instinctively to the Winchester rifle leaning against the fence post. Morrison, Wade's voice boomed across the ranch. Send her out, now. Emma appeared on the porch, her hand resting on the Colt revolver Caleb had given her that morning. I'm not going anywhere with you, Wade, she called out, her voice steady despite the fear Caleb could see in her eyes. Wade laughed.